All right, let's talk about it because a lot of you guys have been mentioning that I skipped over the gear talent changes, right? Like, and I didn't. There was a reason why I didn't go into it because I really want to test it a little bit more before I make a conclusion and be like, you know what, this is the worst thing ever. You know what, this is the best thing ever. I didn't want to jump to that type of conclusion. Now let's look at it, right? So talent changes right now. All basic gear talents are changing to be unique equipped, meaning they will not stack duplicates of themselves on other pieces of gear. This means players will have to compose builds of unique talents combinations instead of stacking one talent on all pieces. To compensate for this, all basic talents have gotten a boost to their power level. Well, how does this affect us, right? Like, how does this really hurt us? So we're gonna go into my build right now. Let's grab this one right here. All right, so this one right here is my berserk compensated. Sorry, my berserk clutch build where I'm stacking health on here. So I have berserk, I have vital right there, and then I have on this one I have vital again. I have hard hitting on here. I have hard hitting almost on 1, 2, 3. I have hard hitting stacked on 3 pieces. So hard hitting is 10%. So now, based on this change right here on phase 2, I can't stack hard hitting on my knee pads or on my mask. I can still have the damage to elites roll right there, but the hard hitting itself cannot be stacked. So I'm initially going to lose, like if we just did it based on these stats, I would lose 20% extra damage to elites. So I would only have 10% right here. But hard hitting is getting a buff and it's getting 25% damage to elites up from 10. So on my build right here, I'm going to be really losing 5%, right? Because I'm getting 25% off of just one. Now on builds where you stack a lot of damage to elites, like, let's see, do I have one that's just stacked straight damage to elites? So a build like this where I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces with damage to elites, that's 50% right there, right? So I'm going to lose 25% damage to elites on this build. But in return, I can probably stack patience on the knee pads, on the holster. Instead of the damage to elites, I could put precise for the headshot damage. On the gloves, I could run weapon damage instead. And then on the chest, I could run harden, right? Or vital. So, I mean, those changes right there, I know it's going to hurt a lot of people, but the fact that you can probably get a damage to elites on the mask, say if you can get a really good one, like at 50%, and then you get one roll of hard hitting, that's still 75% damage to elites on your build. Plus, if you have damage to elites stacked on the weapon, you can probably put another 10% right there. So you'll be like at 85% damage to elites still. So not too bad, perfect for the raid if you're already hitting pretty hard. I can see where a lot of people say they have to redo all their builds. I don't have any builds where it's just a basic LMG build, stack damage to elites. The one that's probably going to hurt me is really this one right here. This sniper build where I do have damage to elites on there. I am going to lose 25% damage to elites, but I'll gain some of it back with precise. I'll gain some of it back with weapon damage, but it's still not going to be like that damage to elites. So now that we are on my PvP character, right? So I am running a 212-6 build right here. Usually, ideally, you would probably put like a 311-7 if you can get it perfectly rolled. This one has 461k armor, around 60k health. And let's just look at the holster, right? So we're looking at the holster right now, a Fenris holster. Now, devastating. A lot of people, what they do is they run devastating on the holster and the gloves, right? If they're not going to run compensated. But now you can't do that, right? But devastating was only 5% weapon damage. This got a buff, so devastating went up to 10%. So now you can only run it in one spot, but it's like running it in 2 spots. And then you could still run precise on your gloves for that 15% headshot damage. So that's what's pretty cool about this, being able to actually stack these on other pieces. Critical got a buff to 20%. Surgical got a buff to 15%. So both of those up 5%. Empowered got a buff up to 20%. So usually, even if you ran unpowered, right? Like if you weren't going to run spotter, let's see, do I have one? Yeah, so if you weren't going to run spotter and you're going to run empowered on the knee pads and the mask, well, that got a buff to 20%. So it's like you were running it on 2 pieces. But now you can run something that has skill haste. So you can run surge instead that has 20% skill haste. So you get a benefit of running both of those. So that's pretty cool right there. I like that. Hard hitting, we already talked about it. Vital, we talked about it. Harden, another one, it was 10%. So if you were going to run Harden, I can't run it on that piece, but say if we were going to run Harden, right, it's 10%. Usually on a Fenris, you could run Harden and a main talent, and then on the backpack, also Harden. Well, now you can only run it in one spot, but Harden got a buff to 20%, so it's like still running it in one spot, but now you can run Harden and Vital. So that's a plus for all builds, period, whether it's PvE or PvP. What else is another pretty good one that got a buff? Destructive is one that took a nerf. Let's see, do I have a build that has my explosive build? Yeah, right here. So we have my explosive build right here, and that's another one that's probably going to hurt a lot of players. Destructive, right? 20%. We could stack this on up to 6 pieces. A lot of times if you're running the BTSU gloves, only 5 pieces. But that was 100%, right? Right here I only have 4 pieces because I'm running Surge. But usually I run explosive damage there. I think it's because this isn't really my skill build. But yeah, so we have the explosive damage there. But now you can only run it in one spot. So you do lose a lot there. But destructive did get a buff to 40%, so it's like you had in 2 spots. But still, if you're running in 3 other spots, that's 60% explosive damage, or maybe even 80% if you're running on the gloves that you're losing out on. That sucks. That sucks a little bit. Skill builds, I guess, Seeker Minds, Bombardier Jones, they were destroying everything. They were running through missions, killing everything, and I know that might hurt players. And I understand that right there, people getting a little upset with that build, losing out on it. I mean, I understand with you guys. I understand the pain of having to regrind all of these. And this is a game changer, really. Like, I think they'll be able to balance stuff a lot better with making these changes. Do I think they're the best changes right now where the game is, the state of the game? I don't know. I can't really give you an opinion on it. I do know that Harden, I feel like PvE players got hit a little bit harder on this side. I think PvP players didn't really get hit as hard. But I feel with us losing on the ropes, which I don't even run on the ropes anyway because I run double heals. With on the ropes getting a nerfed, weapon damage is only increased at 10%, right? On skill cooldown. So it got a nerf down 15% right there. I don't even really use it, and I still do enough. Compensated is where my build really took it, and compensated dropped down. What compensated? I think didn't it go down to? I want to say what was it? 10%. I think compensated is now 10%. I have to double check for PvP. I think that was on the notes before, but I'm not seeing them on the notes on here. But I think that's what they said last time, unless they changed it. But I thought compensated got a nerf. Maybe they're not going to nerf compensated. They're going to leave it. But with you still getting some devastated, see this build just got a buff right there for having devastated, empowered. I just got a buff right there. Spotters taking a nerf right there because it's at 10%, but I can still run the 5 utility if I want. Bloodsucker, on the other hand, is getting a nerf. This build doesn't run it, but this build right here, I mean, I guess Bloodsucker was a little bit overpowered. I wouldn't say overpowered, but it was to a point where once you could stack it to 6, it was crazy. Now, Bloodsucker now, depleting enemy armor adds a stack of 15% down from 20% because remember, it was 20% in PvP. And then the bonus armor for 5 seconds, max stack was 2. So the time it's on there got nerfed, and then it also the max stack. So you can only really get a bonus of 30% for 5 seconds. But on a build with almost 500k armor, that's still pretty good. But it's not what it used to be. So I can see people going away from Bloodsucker and going with more offensive stats, maybe like Berserk, builds like that, which for PvP players, they really don't I think PvP players really are the ones that with talents, they'll be like, okay, that's cool. I'll just run a different talent or something. The one thing that sucks is when you have builds that are already set up, right? You have builds that have those roles that you want, that are perfectly how you want them. And then now you have to go find new talents. It's more farming, and it's like kind of like starting over. But I mean, when they make big changes like this is going to happen, right? If they're going to balance the game, if they're going to make huge changes and make the game different, this will happen. We'll always have to farm new things, and that's what sucks, right? But overall, I think a lot of the changes to 3.11.7 builds, kind of like nerfing them so people start running other builds, it's a good thing. But the people who got hit the hardest with this only being able to stack one item are the PvE builds with the damage to elites, the skill builds with the only skill builds that running explosive. I can see that really hurting. But if you're not running explosive damage builds, then you're perfectly fine. Like, so if you're not running like a Seeker Mine build where you're trying to blow stuff up instantly, you're fine. You can still have hard-hitting builds. It just won't be OP as before. But I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about all of this because people kept saying, hey, you didn't even talk about this. And the reason why I didn't talk about it is I wanted to have time to actually test it out, see how I would enjoy it, start running builds without all those and see if they work, right? But I did want to let you guys know I did look into it. I have checked it out, but I haven't been able to test out builds without running multiple stats on there because you remember the buffs aren't on there. So I would have to get on the PTS and then I don't really have builds on there to fully test these out. So hopefully guys get to test this out. Agents get to test it out and they can say, hey, you know what? Maybe we should be able to stack at least 2 times, right? Like stack it twice, no more than that. But maybe they want to go with this and maybe this is better for them to balance in the future. We'll see. We'll see what plays out. But I think the people who got hit the hardest on these basic gear talent changes are PvE guys, PV and skill builds. So if you're running skill builds, explosive damage builds in PvP, those guys got hit the worst out of everybody. And I feel that if you're running this in PvP, yeah, your build might have got nerfed if you're running 3.11.7, but in the long run for PvP, I think this is a good step in the right direction for not everybody just running one build 3.11.7, right? We're going to be probably running some different builds, and that's a good thing. Let me know what you guys think about this. I know this is probably going to be a hot topic for a while until they finally announce what they're doing, if this is going to stay in play. And the Twitter's blowing up with this. People were saying, hey, Skills, what's going on with talent changes you didn't talk about in your video? Here you go. Leave a thumbs up, comment down below, and as always, guys, until the next Division 2 video, nothing but Skills is out.